My boss framed me for a crime I didn't commit, and the moment I spoke up, he threatened to bury me publicly. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. The accusation didn't come with handcuffs. It came with silence. One email, no subject line. A single sentence copied to the board of directors. We have reason to believe Mark Lawson manipulated financial records. That was it. No meeting. No warning. No chance to explain. I stared at my screen, reading my own name like it belonged to someone else. My hands didn't shake. My chest didn't tighten. What hit me was colder than panic. Confusion. I had built this company from the ground up alongside him. 12 years. Late nights. Missed holidays. Loyalty that never once felt questioned. And now, this. I stood up slowly, walked down the hallway, and knocked on his office door. No answer. Through the glass wall, I could see him sitting calmly, phone pressed to his ear, smiling. He saw me. He didn't wave. He didn't gesture. He turned his chair slightly, so his back faced the door. That was the moment I understood this wasn't a mistake. I waited until his call ended. Then I walked in. "What's going on?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. He didn't look surprised. He looked prepared. "Sit down," he said, folding his hands. "We need to be very careful about what we say next." That word, careful, landed like a threat. "You accused me of fraud," I said. "You copied the board." He nodded slowly. "Yes." "You know I didn't do that." Another nod, slower this time. "I know," he said, "but they don't." The room went quiet. No dramatic music, no raised voices, just the hum of the air conditioning and the sound of my career collapsing in real time. "Why?" I asked. He leaned back. "Because you're in the way." I waited for him to laugh. He didn't. "You've been asking questions," he continued, "about the overseas accounts, about the shell vendors. That curiosity makes people nervous." "So you frame me," I said. He smiled, not cruelly, casually, like this was a reasonable business decision. "I didn't frame you," he said. "I redirected attention." I stood up. "I'm going to HR." He finally looked amused. "There is no HR," he said. "There's only risk management, and right now, you are the risk." I walked out without another word. By the time I reached my car, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Messages from coworkers I'd known for years. Short, awkward, apologetic. "Heard something weird. Hope it's not true. Call me when you can." Then one message from an unknown number. "If you defend yourself, I'll release everything." I stopped walking. "What everything?" I typed. The reply came instantly. "Emails, audio, a timeline that makes you look guilty before you even open your mouth." I felt the ground shift beneath me. "This is blackmail," I typed. "A precaution," he replied. "You stay quiet. You resign gracefully. And this ends clean." I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the steering wheel like it might give me answers. 12 years of loyalty, and this is how it ends? No, this wasn't the end. This was the setup. That night, I didn't sleep. I replayed every meeting, every transaction, every decision we'd ever made. I pulled up old backups, archived files, personal notes I'd never shared with anyone. And slowly, something began to emerge. Patterns, transactions that didn't make sense. Payments approved when I was out of the country. Vendor names that changed slightly, just enough to avoid detection. He hadn't just framed me. He had assumed I'd never look back. The next morning, I received a calendar invite. Exit discussion. No subject, no agenda. I declined it. Minutes later, my phone rang. "I thought we had an understanding," he said calmly. "You accused me of a crime," I replied. "That changes things." His voice hardened. "I warned you. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." "Or what?" I asked. There was a pause. Then, "You'll be remembered as the man who stole millions and vanished." I hung up. For the first time, I felt something stronger than fear. Resolve. If he wanted silence, I would give him patience. If he wanted disappearance, I would give him distance. But I would not give him the ending he planned. Because while he thought he had erased me, he had left behind something far more dangerous: time. And I was going to use every second of it. I didn't storm back into the office. I didn't call a lawyer. I didn't warn anyone. I did the opposite of what he expected. I disappeared. For 2 weeks, I stayed quiet. I stopped answering messages. I let the rumors breathe. I let people fill the silence with their own assumptions. That was the hardest part. Watching my name decay without defending it. But silence, when used correctly, isn't weakness. It's camouflage. Every night after the city went still, I sat at my kitchen table with a laptop I'd never used for work. No company Wi-Fi, no logins tied to my name, just raw files I'd saved years ago without knowing why. Invoices, approval chains, internal audits that were postponed. I rebuilt the company from the outside, transaction by transaction, like reconstructing a crime scene no one wanted reopened. And the deeper I went, the clearer it became. He hadn't framed me out of panic. He'd framed me because he was running out of time. There were 3 shell companies. On paper, international vendors. In reality, they funneled money back into a private account under a trust name I recognized immediately. His father's. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just fraud. It was legacy laundering. He wasn't stealing for himself. He was cleaning the past. I cross-checked dates. Every questionable payment aligned with one thing: my objections. Every time I questioned a transfer, something happened to distract me. A crisis, a fake emergency, a rushed meeting. And now, with auditors circling closer, I'd become the final obstacle. So he erased me. On day 17, I finally replied, to one person. Not a lawyer, not the board. A former compliance officer who'd been pushed out quietly 2 years earlier. I sent one sentence. "If you still have your old notes, I need them." He replied an hour later. "I was hoping you'd ask." We met in a parking garage outside the city, both of us checking our surroundings like amateurs in a bad movie. But paranoia wasn't foolish anymore. It was survival. He opened his trunk and handed me a small flash drive. "I kept everything," he said. "They told me to delete it. I didn't." "What's on it?" I asked. He looked at me carefully. "Proof and a pattern." Back home, I plugged it in. What I found made my stomach drop. Internal memos, risk assessments, warnings labeled "Do Not Circulate," and one line, buried in a confidential report. "If exposure occurs, redirect accountability to Mark Lawson, my name," in writing. Dated 8 months before the accusation. He hadn't reacted to my questions. He'd planned my fall. The next morning, I got another message from him. Last chance. Resign today, and this stays quiet. I stared at the screen, then typed back. Understood. Within minutes, he replied with a simple thumbs-up emoji. That told me everything. He thought I was finished, so I let him think that. I submitted my resignation letter, short, emotionless, apologetic. I didn't deny anything. I didn't admit anything. I thanked the board for the opportunity and wished the company continued success. Within hours, the internal announcement went out. Mark Lawson has stepped down effective immediately. I watched the reactions roll in, the relief, the whispers, the quiet satisfaction from people who wanted the problem gone, not solved. That night, I slept for the first time in weeks, because now the board thought the story was over, and stories only become dangerous once people stop paying attention. Over the next month, I became invisible. No LinkedIn updates, no interviews, no public statements. I let him settle into confidence. I let him move money faster, sloppier. That's what predators do when they think the threat is gone. They relax. And that's when I made my next move. Not with accusations, not with exposure, but with questions asked by someone else. An anonymous tip to an external audit firm. A quiet nudge to a financial journalist known for patience, not noise. A sealed envelope delivered to a regulatory office with one note inside. Start here. I didn't attach my name. I didn't need to. Because once the machine starts turning, it doesn't ask who pushed the button. 3 weeks later, his office lights stayed on past midnight. 2 weeks after that, the board called an emergency meeting. And one morning, as I poured coffee in my quiet kitchen, my phone buzzed with a message I hadn't expected to see so soon. We need to talk. For the first time since this began, he sounded nervous. And I knew. The story he'd written for me was unraveling. Slowly, publicly. Exactly the way it needed to. I didn't reply to his message right away. I let it sit. I wanted him to feel what I'd felt. Uncertainty, doubt, the slow realization that control was slipping. When I finally responded, it was with 3 words. Say it here. He called instead. Mark, he said, forcing calm into his voice. Things are getting complicated. Funny, I replied. That's the word you used when you told me to be careful. Silence. The board has questions, he continued. Auditors are asking for records that don't exist anymore. I'm sure that's stressful, I said. You don't understand, he snapped. They're reopening old approvals, transactions from years ago. I understand perfectly, I said. That's why I saved everything. The line went dead. 2 days later, the story broke. Not as a scandal, not as a headline screaming guilt, as an investigation. That distinction mattered. A respected financial journalist published a long-form piece, measured, methodical, impossible to dismiss. It didn't accuse. It presented timelines, documents, patterns. It asked the kind of questions that force answers, and every path led back to him. Shell companies tied to family trusts. Approvals routed around compliance. Risk assessments ignored. And buried deep in the article, one sentence that changed everything. Sources indicate an internal plan to redirect accountability to a senior executive who raised concerns. They didn't name me. They didn't need to. By noon, his name was everywhere. The board released a statement, then another, then silence. That afternoon, I received an email from the company's legal counsel. We would like to formally apologize for the actions taken against you and invite you to provide testimony as part of an internal review. I forwarded it to my lawyer. By the end of the week, regulators were involved. He resigned quietly on a Friday evening. No announcement, no farewell email. His access revoked. His office cleared by someone else. But quiet resignations don't stay quiet when evidence exists. The investigation widened. Former employees came forward. Vendors cooperated. Old complaints resurfaced, suddenly taken seriously. And then came the final blow. A public hearing. He sat at the table alone, no longer protected by titles or silence. The board members who once nodded along now avoided eye contact. The questions were simple, direct. He stumbled, contradicted himself, and when asked why responsibility had been placed on me, his answer sealed his fate. It seemed efficient at the time. Efficient. That word followed him everywhere. The media latched onto it. Analysts dissected it. Online, it became shorthand for calculated betrayal. Within days, his professional reputation collapsed. Advisory boards dropped him. Speaking invitations vanished. His name became a liability. I watched it all from a distance. I never spoke publicly. I never celebrated. I never needed to. Because revenge doesn't require applause when the truth does the work for you. Months later, my lawyer called. "The company is offering a settlement," he said. "Public apology, compensation, restoration of your record." "Accept it," I replied. "But I don't want my job back." When the apology was published, it was brief, corporate, bloodless. But it was enough. My name was cleared, and his was permanently attached to the one thing he couldn't erase: intent. I moved on, started consulting independently. Quiet work, clean contracts, no partners I didn't trust. Sometimes people ask if I regret not confronting him directly. If I wish I'd shouted, exposed him sooner, burned everything down. I don't. Because anger fades, but consequences last. What I learned is simple and painful. The most dangerous people aren't loud. They're calm. They don't threaten, they plan. And the most powerful revenge isn't violence or humiliation. It's patience. It's documentation. It's letting the truth surface when it can no longer be denied. If there's a lesson here, it's this: never underestimate the damage caused by quiet betrayal. And never underestimate the strength of someone who chooses to wait. Because when justice arrives on its own terms, it doesn't ask for permission. It just ends the story. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. Thank you for watching.